Good afternoon, everybody. It is the 29th of September. Hail Mary, Michele. Today we got Lumi is going to be joining us because we want to talk about a video together. Only because it seems that her channel isn't quite cutting it. People are not really. I think the problem is my channel is just got too many. It's too eclectic. I don't think people really like me by myself. I don't know, Luma. That's a great question. But today we're going to talk about having a couple of different topics that definitely kind of fits into both of our genres. The first topic is about the so-called potential government shutdown that's supposed to occur on October 1st if the Republicans and the Democrats in the Congress can't get their heads together. I will just be the first to tell you, in fact, I'm probably not the first, but probably many people have said it, that clearly they have different ideologies of what they consider important. The Republicans don't really want to shut the government down. Especially the Tea Party people, want to get the government to wake up to the fact that we cannot afford to keep financing all these stupid programs. Yet, we also find out that there's a thing called the black budget. I mentioned this briefly in a few of my other videos. The black budget is a government budget that is secret. No one really talks about it. It does things like government spending for defense purposes and other clandestine projects, which unfortunately are not in the knowledge of the general American public. It's not really a large budget, but if you took a look at it and went through those programs there, these special programs, you probably could see where you could make some savings. In these programs, of course, it's the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency funding. Black budget is predominantly military, but isn't necessarily have to be. There may be even some other departments budgets for special interest projects in there as well. I am a very much an active supporter for the defunding and the abolishment of the National Security Agency, as clearly it is not in the best interest of Americans. Dianne Feinstein, unfortunately, continues to think that surveillance on American citizens should continue. I'm glad to know that the Supreme Court is going to try to weigh in on the issue. But like Justice Scalia said, is that the federal government's Supreme Court is unfortunately out of the loop when it comes to understanding of the way the budgets work across the country. So there may not be the best choices for it. Unfortunately, because it is hot in here. It is steaming. It is steaming hot. It's because we have the windows closed. We were preparing for winter, and unfortunately, the environmental controls are set for winter. So now everything is like roasting hot in here, and I tell you, I am sweating. So am I. But if I may finish, and then we'll get to a topic that we both agree we want to discuss. I think it is time for Congress to wake up and examine those things in the budget that seem to have been considered special interests and weigh out on them. Obamacare already pointed out we cannot afford it. I agree with the Tea Party people that the Obamacare was created at a time in the United States was ill prepared to fund it. I think that it should be at least, Obama, if you could at least just agree to a little bit to just hold off until the Congress can get a budget settled down to fix things. Also, Congress has not had a stable budget in a long time, and they come up with these temporary spending measures that are not really a budget. I can do the same thing myself every month, but you know what would happen? I would not have a balanced budget. Okay, it's just you do that once in a while. Yeah, once in a while, but not every year. I mean, I don't sit there going, oh, screw a standard budget. We're just gonna go ahead and just blow it all. Woo! It doesn't work that way. No, it doesn't. And we don't go to our credit card companies and go, "Excuse me, sir, could I have some more?" I don't have the money to pay the interest, but I'd like to have some more, please. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. I'm also very happy to know that you enjoyed the few of you that did watch it. I know it was a little bit eclectic and a little bit behind, not quite up to our standards of my presentation with you about Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It's very difficult to do a presentation like that because of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. I did my best to make sure to remain in a fair letter of the law, and I think I have succeeded. But unfortunately, a major video is as boring as dried cornflakes. You're right, you did. Now, for the other topic, yes, we're going to talk about the other side. Again, we're not going to talk about the same stuff that we've talked about. We're going to talk about two other topics as well, but they're all tied together. First of all, in some pagan communities, there's a thing called Summerland. Summerland is, you could go on the other side for pagans, which also, of course, is the other side for Christians too. It's a place of happiness. It's warm. It's happy. It's Elysian Fields. Elysian Fields. I think you get the point. Nirvana. This is a place of great joy, great happiness. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows your name. So, anyway. But the point is that there's obviously got to be a reverse of it. And there is. And I never talk about it in the media, but I'm going to bring... Because we don't even have a name for it, I'm going to come up with a name for it. Winterland. Now, you would think for Snow Queen, Winterland would be great, right? Nice, cold, snow. But it's more than that. It's one of the reasons why even the Snow Queen would choose not to go there. Because it is a true opposite of everything Summerland is. It's miserable. It's dark. It's cold. People are hostile. It's a place where people don't even say hello to you. Nobody wants to know you. Nobody wants to recognize you. And so, because of that, some people have talked about this as the dark side. And I'm not talking about the Sith. And I'm not talking about Lucas and Star Wars. I'm talking about something that is real and unpleasant. And it's just miserable. Okay? Unfortunately, for us members of the Weather Stewards, we have, unfortunately, in the several Snow Queens in the past, I have had the pleasure of me and Lomi chewing through this together. And one of the questions came up with is, what happens to a person when they become a Snow Queen or a Winter Steward is really, really profound to the soul. The soul changes, unfortunately, to match their season. So, let me explain that with comparing the other souls first. Let's talk about the summer and spring souls. Summer souls are, for the most part, are very, very happy. They're very, very, the exuberant. They look at the world around them. They think things are going to be better. They see the new spring of life. The flowers are coming out, and the birds are starting to come back from the migrations. And so they happen to have a certain type of personality, and the clothing matches. The nice bright greens and blues, or not so much blue, but definitely, greens and some other peaches, light colors. And then, not quite as brilliant as summer clothing, but you get the point. And then you got these are the kind of people most people like to congregate to as being stewards, because they tend to feel happy and they feel control. Same thing with the summer stewards. They tend to be at the peak of their life. They're happy. They got everything going for them. Um, they're partying. I mean, not always physically partying, but they are always seem to be in a party kind of festive mood. And then we get to the autumns, and then the autumns are almost like the people who are starting to suffer from clinical depression. Um, they know that their season starts out happy and content and everything, and then they see everything start to wither away and die, and they like so it's like going from an euphoric excitement to a crash. Yeah, the crash is pretty hard. It is hard. Within 3 months of summer, or autumn, we see this. Um, Autumn people are, for more point, are kind of more reserved. They're not quite as exciting as the spring and summers. But then we get to the winters. The winters, that's us, me, and you. Yeah. And we tend to be pretty much loners. We stay to ourselves, and we're not really very exciting people. I think one of the most amazing thing about the winter stewards is something that was said in the movie by Hallmark Entertainment. There by the spring woman. She explained how the Snow Queen became as she is, and then you watch that video segment all the time, and you always kind of make you it makes you always kind of make you bite your nails. It's like, oh my god, yeah, this because what the Springs person's talking about, and because of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, I cannot play that segment for you. But I can just tell you what she said, and I'm going to paraphrase it. So again, I don't have to worry about the DMCA saying that we are trying to steal or plagiarize what she said. She said basically is this to Gerda: I know everything that the Snow Queen is. I've seen her go and get meaner and colder every year. I've seen her strive for more and more power. Gerda, I know how ruthless and how cold she can be. And Gerda asks her the tough question. She says, how could you? Because she's my sister. The point of the matter is that this has been statistically proven year in and year out. Many Snow Queens have went through this. We start out really excited with our season. We always want to look for making our season a happy season. But the sad truth is, it doesn't work out that way, because what happens is our seasons become us, and so we start to we become like our seasons. So if you're a spring person, you're going to be like spring. If you're a summer person, you're going to be like a summer person. Autumn person becomes more like autumn, the season that they embrace. And unfortunately, the same thing with winter. And we tend to be. Well, then I tell you about myself, and then I think you'll understand this here. I've always loved winter as a kid, and but I always try to understand and grudgingly appreciate to some extent the other seasons before I became a Snow Queen. And what happened was, after I was crowned, I started to change. I started to change in a very, very strong way. The things that I loved, the winter, the snow, the cold, those became paramount to my life. And to the point where this summer, I don't even remember this summer. This summer I stayed inside. I stayed in an air-conditioned house. I didn't go out much, except to do some errands. And then, of course, I grumbled and complained about summer all the way through, off camera. And I also complained about summer on camera as well, but not as much. And my attitude started to change too, because instead of embracing people and trying to be a warm and affable person, I began to distance myself from them and start to isolate. And that can be a really, really, really detrimental thing, because that's exactly what happens in winter anyway, is that you tend to do that. But soon that becomes a part of you, and then after a while, you really don't give a damn anymore. And then after that, here I do these videos. It was the only way I would come out and talk to you. And my audience would know this. They could see it. If you watch the 2 years of videos, you see that I went from being a fairly happy person to a person that was a grumpy grouch. And I am very sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I really am. I came into the role wanting to change the role for the better. Instead of focusing on the Earth's dormancy as a negative thing, I wanted to try to take the fact that we know that the Earth is preparing physically for the new spring, and that there's a new birth. But obviously, at least in our hemisphere, of course, at the same time we're having our cold and snow and ice. The southern hemisphere is having their summer. So, and but what it does to you emotionally, that is really where problems start, because it's just like we were talking about with Winterland. You Anybody who's ever lived in the Arctic or Antarctic for 6 months out of the year when it's really dark and you only get like sun, maybe like in the Arctic only one for like summer and spring when the sun is 24 hours a day, and then you go into winter for that 6 months. At the peak of winter is like there's no sunlight, there's no warmth at all. It's cold. The winds are biting you. Sounds nice. Well, in this case, it could also be really, really emotionally draining to the soul as well, because it's the dark tea time of the soul, if you will, as Douglas Adams would say, because you start to change. Yeah, obviously for summers and springs, this is a season of the least desired, because they see everything as bleak and cold and dark and dismal to them. Whereas to us, it's like, being home with a long lost friends of the ice and the snow. But the truth is that another thing too is we don't really have too many friends. Talking about human friends or otherwise. Winter snow queens tend to be very isolated. That, I think, is the reason why what Hans Christian Andersen was trying to say was why did Snow Queen take Kai instead of basically unhitching him from her sled and say, get out of here? Now, that's a good question. Probably because deep down she was so lonely she wanted to have him there, but, her desires of companionship was so strong she was willing to do it. But then when she had him as a companion, she did not give him much companionship at all. In fact, in the movie and in many of the Snow Queen stories, you'll notice that Kai is left to his own devices in the palace, either working on a puzzle or just sitting there by himself, isolated and turning his skin turning blue and all that and becoming cold. Unfortunately, that's sometimes happens. So maybe the question would be is, what can a winter steward do to prevent that from happening to them? You can't, because it is going to happen to you. It is just like, if I was to take on a spring steward role, for example, maybe at first I would be a little bit grudging about it. Oh no, I gotta worry about making things grow. I gotta make the grass turn green. I gotta bring all of the warmth and the comfort into the air. I might get grumpy at first, but after a while, you kind of begin to look forward to that time of year. Yeah. But it's no surprise that the average season, spring and summer, are the ones that have the least number of celebrations, and winter has the most. And there's a reason why. Because in wintertime, especially in Nordic lore and also in Europe, when we celebrate Mistra, which is part of Yule, is we are trying to capture the joy of the new summer and the new spring coming. Yeah. But at the same time, the same thing when the autumn, when you have the great harvest of Samhain, which is also when the veil between this side and the other side are the thinnest, but also because it's a time of the final harvest for the year. We bring together all the stuff from the fields and we celebrate with our departed ones, loved ones, the season of Samhain. And the same thing for Thanksgiving and All Souls. All Souls or All Saints in the Catholic calendar. So it's the same thing. Um, it's not that pagans, by any stretch of imagination, are all dark, gothic people who just only want to talk about death and dying. The truth of the matter is that a well-rounded pagan tries to embrace all four seasons and respect the four seasons as they are the cycle. So I always celebrate the Sabbats and the Esbats and the equinoxes and the solstices. We're coming together to recognize the year as we go through it. And we recognize the things that have happened to us in the past and in the present. And we try our best to look forward to the future. And this autumn is definitely no different from me. Every autumn I go through my Section 8 inspection. Every autumn it's the same trepidation. Oh my God, am I going to fail this exam? I haven't failed it yet this time, but I mean, that was prior to my landlord getting sick and having health concerns that are potentially going to be, clearly are going to change the program. I don't know also what's going on in Congress. So there's all these questions of how it's going to affect us all in the programs. Also, if this federal government goes into a shutdown, doesn't that mean that the Section 8 inspections would probably be suspended? It's possible, though. That would mean that your benefits would be suspended, too, because no inspection. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we have to consider that. Because that's a federal program. It's not just a statewide program. But that we can talk about that again. Let's talk about the partial shutdown, and but in this case, what we're talking about is how we look forward to the future by examining our past and present, and that's what pagans do. But at the same time, what happens to the Snow Queen is very scary. I've noticed this in my own life in 2 years. It's the reason I'm having this discussion with you. Let me ask you a question. You were the former Snow Queen in Europe many, since 1870 to 1910. Would you be willing to talk about your experiences? I started as a Snow Queen and I was 35 years old. Of course, I didn't have the technology of today, so obviously technology wasn't there. But the personal presentation, I was always a bit of a loner anyway. So what happened is I took this initiative to carry on the winter, Snow Queen role because I grew up in a Nordic culture, so I already knew about the legend of the Snow Queen working with the frost giants. And so I loved winter all my life. I always loved it, but I always liked the other seasons too, but not as much. But winter was, always kind of my thing. And after I took the vow to carry on the role of the Snow Queen, I began to change too, because the first thing that happened to me was I began to isolate, like you said. I began to distance myself from people I knew. I hated the other seasons. I began to really despise summer, almost to the point where, just the thought of summer basically made me violently ill. I always welcomed the winter, and of course going home and sitting by my, in my cold room. We didn't have central heating back then. So, we had like little wood stoves and fireplaces. And I tended not to put much wood in my stove. I just tended to keep just warm enough to keep them freezing to death. And people said to me, my name was Bridget at the time. They said, Bridget. And I said, Brigham yesterday said, "You are becoming the meanest son of a bitch we ever seen. You don't socialize with anybody. You don't talk to nobody. You don't. You keep to yourself. You're very terse. You don't go to parties. You only time you go out is during Yule and Christmas, and you really didn't do a lot. And so people started to see that I was not as as I was prior to taking my vows, and it started. I didn't really see it at first until I started talking to my relatives, and I saw how I was embracing like a goth the dark side, the dark nature of winter, and I began to wonder, what was happening to me, and so by the time I was, in my 70s, I died about 85 years old. I mean, which was, for that time, was really, really amazing. Yes, it was. You lived to be a long, ripe old age. Very rarity in my time. Yes, it was. The average lifespan at the time would be about 50, 50 to 60, 50 to 60. Okay, so you changed. You went from. Did you ever, prior to that, ever like the other seasons? I did, but not as much as winter. I accepted summer because summer was part of the role, it's part of the cycle. But because I was raised as a Lutheran, so I accepted summer. I knew that the summer was a magical time and life would spring forth on the earth. And I knew that Mother God and Father God wanted us to embrace the joy of the earth at its peak. But for me, it was becoming, after I began to start cleaning, it's like I began to despise the whole idea of being around all that living life. That's the thing that's the scariest thing of all. And it's happening to you too. I see it. If you look at too much color, you get, or you get upset. If someone talks to you about the fun of summer, you tend to, your eyes glaze over, and it's like, I don't want to talk about it. Because it's scary. It's not comforting to you. It's almost like the whole idea of summer just it is just an alien thing. It's like people who don't like action adventure movies with lots of gun and shooting, and you don't. So this is a perfect example. All of a sudden, being immersed going into a video game convention, and all they do is talking about shoot 'em up action adventure games with all kinds of virtual reality simulations. And then what do you say you do? You would go home and say, "That was a waste of my time." Yeah, that's true. So maybe we have to ask this question. From sure other people probably have felt the same way. Is how can they correct that issue? Well, part of it is it's part of it is that you have everybody has a season that they're most akin to. Okay, but you are definitely a winter person. You like fall, but winter's really your favorite. That's when you're at your peak. So some people mistakenly think you're in autumn because you sort of have like a late autumn feel to you too. But I can tell you from what I've seen is that you're becoming colder and definitely not as pleasant to some people. And it's not because you want to be ambivalent. You're just it's just what happens to you. As far as how do you reverse that trend, I don't think you can just reverse it on your own. But to say you can't reverse it on your own, it would be totally incorrect. You can, but the thing is that as long as you're carrying the crown of North American Snow Queen, as long as you committed yourself to that role, unless you can find a young protege who was to take over the role, you're stuck for life and beyond life, like Mother said. So you can't just walk away from it and say, I quit. Because if you do that, you're not really out of it. You're tied to it for life, and then some. I'm glad you mentioned the then some, because I remember what my mother said about life and beyond life. What does that mean? It means that unless you find a young person, an apprentice, to take over the role, even after you die, you are still going to be the North American Snow Queen. Even if, so you will still be required to do the work. And what if I don't want to do it anymore? You're stuck. Because you knew that. Everybody does. All the stewards know that. This is a life-changing event, and it does not end. Just you don't. It's not like a light switch. You can't just turn it on and off. Okay, you are once you sign, so to speak, on the dotted line. That's it. And the only escape clause that you have is to pass on that role to an apprentice. You would train and to continue on the family role. Yeah. So the Snow Queen role is not going to be. Okay, so obviously you're saying is that I'm stuck in it for life and beyond life, as Mother said. But what about how can a person change the way they feel about the seasons? Well, Mother originally asked you if you would do a few of the other seasons as well, and you flat out refused. Just same things with Joey in Brisbane. He was asked to do winter, and he said, "No, I will not do winter. I can't stand winter. I don't want to be winter." What would happen if he had been a winter person, as long as the other 3 seasons that he's chosen? I think he probably would find himself regretting it because he has to see the world change. Autumn is miserable for a lot of people, and winter is definitely the peak of the misery. hmm That's why Mother can't really find too many people for autumn or winter, because nobody wants it. Winter is a time of solitude. It's cold, it's dark, it's not really a very happy time. No matter how many Yule celebrations or how many Christmas parties you have or how many Kwanzas or Hanukkahs, it's still basically the same thing. It's a time when the earth is at rest. And it is a time when we say at rest, we should be talking about explaining the earth, switches between the summer and the northern hemispheres, the events around them, because of the tilt of the Earth's axis and the apogee and perigee of the Earth around the Sun. So, when the Earth is tilted, or when the northern continents are tilted away from the Earth, and the Earth is at its apogee, which is the farthest away, we have the colder winters, and we see all the green things start to die, except for the evergreens, which they still get some. They face hardships too, but because of their they're built to be a little more hardy. We have they tend to stay green year round. But the animals get into the burrows and their dens, and they warm up and they keep warm. People do the same thing. Yeah. If you look at what the Snow Queen represents, she's not really going out there to encouraging much bonding. She's more like, kind of like the Helen Reddy song, "Leave Me Alone." She's not a very social person. She's quiet. She's very, very contemplative. It's a very personal thing. And so it takes a special person to be like that, which obviously she found that person in you. Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the most amazing things. But I don't think you can change the way you are. I think that's the important thing. It's part of this is ingrained in your nature. It was in my nature, and it definitely is in your more so than you than me. I mean, I liked autumn too, but for some reason, uh, I was a little drawn closer to winter. But I never really quite got rid of my affinity for autumn. I actually looked at autumn as a time of excitement for me to see how the world's change and for the time of the earth would go into rest. Um, but I think that we have to be careful because also, unfortunately, what sometimes comes with the winter being in the snow queen is make sure not to let any kid named Kai hitch a ride on your sled. And if he does, kick him off. Because the truth is that you'll be so desperate in some cases to seriously keep you cling to you want friendship so bad that you would actually start to do things um, if you're not careful that definitely goes into a dark parts of the law, and I think that we have to watch out for that. That's one reason my mother did not want you to be a snow queen by yourself, because she realized is if Michele has sailed by herself, no partner, no lover, no nothing. What would happen is you would be just like the snow queen of the past, which I was. And did you ever let anybody hit you right on your sled? No, but I think that because of my nature, I tended to just basically do the equivalent of just distance myself from everything. I was a very dark person. Now, let's talk about dark and light for a second. What is a white goth and what is a dark goth? It's just a matter of degrees, I think. Everybody talks about the dark goths, but the light goths can be just as amazing. They embrace, the lightness, but they're not necessarily any better. There's still belief in starkness. If you look at a typical, there are a few white goths, and those that do exist are wear a lot of white, and they tend to um, really kind of enjoy light colors. Lots of blues, maybe lots of light blues, maybe some light greens, but mostly are definitely want black and white. They they don't quite have affinity with black, but they don't have quite hatred for it either. They wear it if they have to. But their complexion is definitely more oriented for the the the, the whiter colors. They like the white colors. Yeah, it's funny because originally I used to wear a lot of pink. You used to wear a lot of pink and reds, but I think what happened was is after you became the Snow Queen, you kind of went, no, I'm not gonna wear those colors anymore. Um, and when you're around now, see you wear reds, and you look great. You look striking, but with the hair. But I mean, I think that um, it's not really you anymore. I got a whole wardrobe of clothes I can't wear because I just don't think they match my personality and my hair. Yeah, originally you were like like an autumn type of color person, maybe early spring, definitely not a summer. And yet, what happened was after you took the role of Snow Queen, you basically just eschewed all that. You said, no, I want none of that. But yet, you're wearing purple. Don't wear purple because purple can also be a winter color too. It definitely is a color in this case that represents some kind of a royalty, and it definitely has looks good on you. So but I think that what I'm trying to get at is Michele is that as a Snow Queen you become like your season, the starkness in the way you carry yourself and the your persona. Okay. Um, I want to remind everybody, Lou, what would we? I think we have to remind people that they always are welcome to ask us questions. And I thought the videos we did over on your channel was a wonderful video, but it seems like it's not getting much watching. No, it's not, and I'm really getting kind of disenfranchised because I know we really worked on those videos really hard um, to bring those into um, people's hearts and into the lives. But I mean, it's just not selling. It's just not going I don't know if it's because my channel is just too eclectic, or if maybe people get too uncomfortable with it, or whatever, but I think that the videos are really just not going very well for me. I don't know if I made a mistake, or if maybe it's just not the right audience that are paying attention to it. Do you think it would help if we let people know more again about where to find the videos? I don't think it's gonna work because we already tried. You've been putting that information in the video summaries, and it's not going anywhere. I'm not even getting the viewership. I'm not getting viewership right now either. I think the viewership right now is on the decline, because I don't think the audience really enjoy them. Well, that might be. It might be very well, you know, it's not as exciting as watching dogs on skateboards and cute kitty cats romping around and stuff. I thought sometimes having bringing some funny things into my videos, but I'm not sure with things to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act exactly where I'm supposed to go as far as bringing happiness in. For example, I got Rusty the Cat somewhere. Is that him over there? No. Is it? I think so. You put me up here. Yeah, I don't think it's Rusty. Anyway, the point is that I think that the videos definitely need some kind of a thing that's going to bring people into them. Well, I think the problem is because of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. I think it's hurt us. I think it's hurt us a lot because as a YouTube community, because not that we want to plagiarize and steal someone else's work. I'm talking about is the fact is that sometimes we are most people are living in a graphical world. They look at the world around pictures and sounds and smells, but mostly pictures of events, of things that have happened to them, or some stories that evoke feelings. What's happening is that we're not getting that anymore. People are beginning to say, gee, I really would like to see more videos on, how does certain TV shows make you feel? And in the case of Sabrina the Teenage Witch segment, I don't think you were able to go far enough with that to get people to understand that how you feel as a Snow Queen, or why you love sorcery so much, or any of that. And I think this is causing a lot of difficulties because you really would like to share more of your world and your things you love, but because of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, you can't. Because you're afraid that your channel is going to get suspended. And that makes it really hard because there's no way to freely show something because of the way the DMCA is written. It was supposed to protect the copyright holders, but unfortunately it's also hurt a lot of people that want to create derivative works from the copyright holders' works. I mean, YouTube doesn't make it any easier because instead of saying it's okay, guys, you want to show parts of this episode of Hallmark Channel's Snow Queen, then contact Hallmark Channel. Here's the website. Here's how you reach. Here's contact people. Arrange for a license. Go ahead, pay for it with your PayPal or your Visa, MasterCard, and then go ahead and then once we see the receipt, we can prove that you paid for the license right, and you'll be all set. They made it very difficult to do that, to obtain the copyright licenses. And it's really different licensing for presentation of, say, the whole Snow Queen movie versus presenting just a small segment of that movie. And I think that's the reason why we have really failed to reach out to the public, because we can't explain what moves us to that audience, because to explain that would mean that we have to go and say, all right, here's why I like this. Here's why this scene from this movie really moves me. We can't even show the scene in the movie. So all we have to do is going by word of mouth on what we saw and hope to God that somebody doesn't say, hey, I'm going to sue you for plagiarizing, even though you're not intending to. Yeah, that's the reason why the Digital Millennium Copyright Act um, is we gotta really revise. It needs to be revised a little bit. And when you told me that now Congress wants to try to revive part of SELPA and make it a felony to use any kind of copyright material without licensing on YouTube, I really kind of find that really, really disingenuous because it's hurting people. Because there's people in this world that are not trying to do anything wrong, but because of the laws, United States being pushed by the MPAA and the RIAA, how come we don't talk about laws by publishers of books? Where are they? Well, that goes under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. That's completely separate. So you can talk about a book, but you can't talk about a movie. You can talk about a book, you can show a few pages of a book, providing you give your citations, and there should be no problem. You can't do that with a movie. You can't do that with a movie. No. This is a video. This is a video medium. And people are not going to sit there and watch a talking set of heads on television talking about something they can't share. I know, I agree. And that's the reason why it's just really hurting my channel and your channel, because we really would like to welcome the people into our inner sanctum. Let you see our lives. Let us see what we got to show you. I can't seem to show it on my video because unfortunately I don't have the presence. You got this ability to reach into the common man's heart and say, look, here's where it is. Yeah. But right now it seems like you're doing a pretty good job reaching into the common man's heart right now. Because if you show the kind of emotion that you're sharing here on your channel, I got a feeling you would easily have the same number of viewers I got. I tried. It's not working. It's not working. But I wonder if maybe part of the problem is that with two channels, I think maybe it's just getting a little bit awkward for both of us to keep them all coordinated. I also think part of the problem is that not so much that my channel's not being promoted enough, because it's not. But we only got one body, and we have to try to keep two channels going, and one body, and it's very it takes a lot of energy and a lot of emotion, and there's only so much processing power for the videos, and so things kind of get lost in translation, if you will. Yeah, definitely. But wait, why don't I ask you a question which relates to what is your plans for the next month? There's a couple of things that I was going to do. We talked originally about the tape backup units, and I'm talking about what I talked about with my channel, and then we talked about privately. To buy the tape units to read those old tape cartridges is really just not economically feasible right now, because to read the cartridges, it's going to be kind of almost like a disposable tape drive. You read the cartridges in, then what are you going to do with them? They only hold 250 megabytes compressed. After that point, it's just kind of a silly project. Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up. This reason why we both agreed it doesn't make any sense to go for those older SLR tape units. But anyway, I think that I think you're right. I think that the tape unit. Busy.
Can you check the calendar and see when the first and the third come in this week?
Yes, I can. The first is Tuesday, and the third is on a Friday.
She said Tuesday is the first. You just said that.
Oh, gee, he getting interrupted? Yep, but it's a great question. Well, yeah. So we already kind of came up to the conclusion that the tape drive is not going to be feasible. Right. And all the other parts for installing the tape drive, the screws, everything else can be just deferred because it doesn't make any sense to go there. So then I had some experiences with Dish Network and their original arrangement with Blockbuster at Home, which really kind of disappointed me. Or you originally was on a Dish Network Blockbuster Home package where I'd get two DVDs, uh, videos rentals a month for free. In other words, I would just go ahead, just like Netflix, I would just go ahead, mail in my requests for DVDs online, and then they would send me two discs. And I would watch them when I'm done. I would just send them back in the mail, and I'd get two more. But they don't want to do that anymore on the Dish Network. They want to push the streaming option. The problem is that the streaming catalog is terrible. It's really, really awful. It really is lacking so much. Now, what about the Netflix option? I don't. I looked on the Netflix's website. I did not see anything anymore about the DVDs, unless again they separated the DVD rentals from the streaming option. And so now it's like, should I go get a video streaming unit? And we both kind of came up to the same conclusion that maybe, but it's not really something I'm really looking forward to doing because it's money that we don't have to spend. So what I'm thinking is instead is we're going to take that money and save it. Yeah, makes sense to me. But now we don't know what's going to happen with the government shutdown. If that happens, if we're going to get our checks on the 3rd. According to some people, they said we will. And some people say, what we're talking about, what the news has told us, local news, that they said it may be delayed. Now, why would they delay a check that's electronic funds transfer is beyond me. But what I do know is that if it does get delayed, it's going to really create all kinds of hardships for the rent. Yep. So, assuming that nothing goes wrong, assuming that the checks continued for the month of October, November is again, depending on the stopgap measures that they're trying to do with the budget, if they can finally pass something, we may or may not have a check on November. In other words, they have lots of promissory notes. Oh yes, you're entitled to benefits as long as your benefits. As soon as we start issuing money, you'll be entitled to what the back amounts that you're entitled to. But I think that either way, it's still going to create a hardship for people because our government is really terrible at realizing that they have made bad decisions, and instead of being waking up to the reality, they just kind of make excuses. I'm just telling Michele at the same time. So, and then of course, so we don't know what's going to go on with October. We don't know what's going to happen anything after that. All I can tell you is for the near future right now is that I gotta play it by ear just like everybody else is, and but in the long term, you already discussed it for the winter season what you're planning. So I'm not gonna ask you that question again. Okay, right. But what do you think? You read the news internet was it International Panel for Climate Change (IPCC) now trying to reverse their statement saying is that global climate change is still going on. Well, they never said it wasn't going on. They just said that at the time it wasn't as marked change as they expected. And yet now they're saying is, oh, mankind is still at fault. I think that, again they're trying to now again reaffirm the blame is on us, despite the fact is if you look at the solar system, it is a environmental issue that is, really goes on a long time, and it's not just a short term thing. Yeah. Well, I think that we have given our audience enough information to chew on. Do you think we should just wrap this up? I think we should, yeah. Okay. But I'd like you to, I'll let you do the honors this time. Okay. We want to hear from you. We really do. We know you got things to say. You guys are not quiet. You guys, I have heard Michele answer several of your questions in the past videos. We'd like to know what you got to say. I don't care if it's good, bad, neutral, whatever. You got an opinion? Everybody does. Please bring it up and let us know what you think. If you have any suggestions, comments, whatever, tell us. You can leave it in the comment section below this video. You can email Michele at bichele3@gmail.com, or you can mail me as well at lumifinistra@gmail.com. And if you'd like to make a donation to PayPal, the PayPal address is bichele3@yahoo.com. I know that's confusing because it's a different company, but just happens to be the way it worked out. So if you want to send the payments to yahoo.com, that's where you send it to. Else, that's another mail address for Michele at bichele3@yahoo.com. And it turns out that sometimes that if you're going to send video or file attachments, it's better to go through Yahoo. I don't know why. It just doesn't always work through Gmail. Right. So if you want to send video or attachments or whatever, it's best to send it to the bichele3@yahoo.com, and the same with PayPal, bichele3@yahoo.com. And if you look at the link below this summary, you will find other ways to contact me and Michele, and we really want to hear from you. Yep. Okay, guys, we gotta go. That's a wrap. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. And don't forget to like and share. We'll see you soon. Bye.